I wake up with new scars every morning, but I never get hurt. Chapter 1, The First Cut. The morning air felt colder than usual as I slowly stirred awake. A dull, stinging sensation pulled me from my sleep, radiating from my side. Still groggy, I reached under my shirt and traced my fingers over the irritated skin near my ribs. My body stiffened. The texture was different, smooth yet raised, like an old wound that had just begun to heal. My fingertips trembled as they followed the thin, fresh scar running diagonally across my rib cage. The skin around it was slightly inflamed, tender to the touch, as if the wound had been made only a day before. Confusion washed over me. I sat up quickly, throwing off my blanket and scanning the bed for any sign of blood. The sheets were pristine. My nails were short, dull. There was no logical explanation for how this had happened. Had I hurt myself in my sleep? The thought unsettled me. I glanced around my room. Everything looked the same. The wooden dresser in the corner, my laptop on the desk, the dim glow of the alarm clock reading 6:47 a.m. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet, the dull sting on my side screamed that something was very wrong. Swallowing hard, I swung my legs over the bed and made my way to the bathroom. The tile was cold against my bare feet as I flicked on the light. My reflection stared back at me, sleep-mussed hair and bloodshot eyes. I took a deep breath and lifted my shirt. The sight made my stomach turn. A thin, precise scar, about 5 inches long, sliced across my ribs. It wasn't jagged like a scratch or an accidental scrape. It was deliberate, too clean, too straight. My skin had already begun to heal, leaving no sign of fresh blood. It looked days old. I turned slightly, inspecting my back in the mirror. No other injuries. Just that single scar on my side. A wave of unease tightened my chest. Had I hit something yesterday? Fallen? No, I would have remembered. Something like this wouldn't just appear overnight. I shook my head, forcing the panic down. Maybe I had been too exhausted to notice when it happened. I had stayed up late the night before, working on a report. Maybe I had bumped into the kitchen counter or scraped myself against the corner of my desk. But even as I tried to convince myself, the logic didn't hold. The cut was too perfect. Still, I pushed the thought away and went about my day. Work was a usual dull routine. Endless emails, rushed lunch breaks, awkward small talk with colleagues. By the time I got home, I had almost convinced myself that I had overreacted. That was until the next morning, when I woke up to another scar. This time, it stretched across my left shoulder, running just beneath my clavicle. Identical to the first, clean, straight, and fully healed overnight. My breath hitched as I stumbled out of bed, rushing to the bathroom. My hand shook as I yanked my shirt off and stared at the reflection before me. 2 scars. 2 mornings in a row. I gripped the sink, trying to steady myself. My mind raced, searching for an explanation. Sleepwalking? No, I had never had a history of it. A skin condition? Unlikely. Wounds didn't just appear and heal overnight. That left only one terrifying possibility. Someone was cutting me in my sleep, and I had no idea how to stop it. Chapter 2, The Third Mark. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I locked my bedroom door, pushed my desk chair against it for good measure, even checked the windows twice, ensuring they were shut tight. My paranoia was relentless, clawing at my thoughts as I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Someone was doing this to me. There was no other explanation. I tossed and turned, waiting for exhaustion to take over. But every time my eyes fluttered shut, the same chilling thought forced them open again. Would I wake up with another scar? The hours crawled. My body ached for rest, but my mind refused to shut down. Eventually, fatigue won, dragging me into an uneasy, fractured sleep. And then, the pain. Sharp, sudden, a searing sensation along my thigh, like a razor slicing through skin. My body jolted awake. A scream caught in my throat. My hands flew to my leg, fingers trembling as they traced along. Another scar. Fresh, still warm. My breathing came in short, panic gasps as I threw off the blankets and scrambled for the light switch. The bright glow flooded the room, burning my eyes, But I didn't care. I yanked up my pant leg, heart hammering against my ribs. A long, thin scar stretched across my thigh, identical to the others. I stumbled back, knocking into my nightstand. The lamp wobbled, nearly toppling over. My head spun. What the hell was happening to me? I checked the door, still locked. The chair was still in place. Windows? Shut tight. No one had entered the room. But then how? I pressed my back against the wall, my pulse pounding in my ears. My skin felt foreign, violated. Someone or something was doing this to me, and now I felt it happen. Not a dream, not paranoia. Real. A choked breath escaped my lips. My body shook as I forced myself to move, to think. I grabbed my phone with unsteady hands and opened the camera, turning it to selfie mode. I examined my face, half expecting to find something wrong. But I looked the same, pale, eyes wide with terror, sweat glistening on my forehead. Then an idea. I turned on the video recorder. If I wake up another scar, I whispered, voice barely above a breath, this will prove it's real. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to continue. I don't know what's happening to me, but I swear I locked my door. I checked everything, and yet it still happened. I hesitated. Then, with a shaky breath, I turned the camera toward my leg. The scar was right there. Proof, evidence, but no explanation. I placed the phone on my nightstand, angling it toward the bed. If anything happened again, I'd have it on tape. I needed answers, and I was running out of time. Chapter 3. The footage. Morning came too soon. My body felt heavy, drained. My muscles ached as I reached for my phone, my heart hammering in anticipation. The screen lit up. The recording was still running. I swallowed hard and pressed play. The video started with me setting up the camera, my whispered words barely audible. Then hours of stillness. Just me, tossing and turning in restless sleep. The occasional shift of my blanket. Nothing unusual. Until, at exactly 3:13 a.m., my body froze. I stopped moving. The air in my lungs turned to ice. On the screen, I lay eerily still. My chest barely rose and fell. My arms rested at my sides, my expression blank, devoid of any sign of life. Then my head turned, but I didn't wake up. I stared at the footage, my pulse thudding in my ears. The movement was unnatural, slow, mechanical. My own body looked wrong. And then, as if guided by invisible hands, my right arm lifted. I watched in frozen horror as my sleeping self moved with eerie precision, my fingers trailing down to my exposed thigh. My breath hitched. I reached under the blanket and dragged something across my skin, something sharp, something invisible. The wound appeared as I watched. No weapon, no hand guiding it. Just me, cutting myself in my sleep. The video ended abruptly, the screen going black. My reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed and pale. It was me. I had been doing it to myself. But I had no memory of it, no awareness. And worst of all, I had no control. Chapter 4. The Sleeper. My breath came in shallow gasps as I stared at the black screen of my phone. My reflection looked just as horrified as I felt. I was the one making the scars. But that couldn't be right. I had no recollection of it. No urges. No warnings. It was as if someone else was inside me, controlling me. My stomach twisted. I had to know more. I scrolled back in the video, pausing at the moment where my body froze in sleep. I moved frame by frame, analyzing every second. And then, a detail I hadn't noticed before. My eyes, for a brief moment, they had snapped open, wide, glassy, but lifeless. I was awake, but it wasn't really me. A chill crept down my spine. I clutched my arms, suddenly hyper-aware of every inch of my skin. My own body felt foreign, as if I were a guest inside it. I needed answers. I grabbed my laptop, fingers shaking as I typed. Unexplained self-inflicted wounds during sleep. Tons of results popped up. Sleepwalking, parasomnias, dissociative disorders. But none of them explained what I saw in that video. I wasn't just sleepwalking. I was precise, methodical, almost surgical in my movements. This wasn't random. Something was guiding me. A dull ache pulsed at my temples. My exhaustion was catching up to me, but I forced myself to keep digging. There had to be a reason. And then I found something. A discussion thread buried deep in an obscure forum. The title made my stomach drop. Waking Up with Scars You Can't Explain? Read this. I clicked on it. The original post was from an anonymous user, years old. If you're reading this, you're not alone. I've been waking up with scars for months now. But it's not random. It's something else. Something inside me. It moves my body when I'm asleep. It's not sleepwalking. It's like I'm being used, controlled. My fingers tighten around the mouse. I scroll down. Other users had replied, sharing similar experiences, unexplained wounds, strange behavior in sleep, the sensation of not being alone in their own body. And then, the last comment on the thread, a single chilling sentence. Have you checked under your fingernails? A deep, gnawing dread settled in my gut. Slowly, hesitantly, I turned my hands over and examined my nails. And that's when I saw it. Dried blood, beneath my own nails. The color drained from my face. It was my own. Chapter 5, The Other Self. I scrubbed my hands raw under scalding water. The sight of blood, my own blood, under my fingernails made me feel sick. I clawed at my skin in my sleep, marked myself. But why? I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, hoping to find something familiar. But the person looking back at me felt different. My face was pale, my eyes sunken from lack of sleep. My lips were cracked, dry. My whole body felt drained, like I had been fighting something all night. A sudden thought hit me. If I was doing this to myself, was it really me? Or was it someone else inside me? I grabbed my phone again, reopening the video file. My pulse thundered in my ears as I scrolled back to the part where I moved in my sleep. My eyes had been open, but there was something wrong with them. I zoomed in, paused. My pupils were dilated, swallowing nearly all the color of my irises. My face was void of expression, like a puppet waiting for its next command. I looked dead. No, not dead. Empty. I clenched the phone, so hard my knuckles turned white. Something was happening to me, something beyond science, beyond reason, and I was running out of time. I needed help. Now, I yanked open my nightstand drawer and pulled out an old notebook. Inside, I found the number I was looking for, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Dr. Ian Reeves, a specialist in sleep disorders, a paranormal researcher, and the only person who might believe me. I dialed the number. It rang. Once, twice, then a click. A deep, steady voice came through. I was wondering when you'd call. My blood ran cold. He was expecting me. Chapter 6, The Truth Beneath My Skin. Dr. Ian Reeves didn't sound surprised when I told him everything. The scars, the footage, the feeling that something was using my body while I slept. He listened in silence, only speaking when I finished. You need to come to my office, he said. Tonight. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I grabbed my keys and left immediately. His office was in a dimly lit second-story space above an old bookstore. The air smelled like aged paper and something faintly metallic. Ian looked older than I remembered. His face was lined, his graying beard unkempt. But his eyes were sharp, studying me like I was an anomaly he was trying to solve. You're sure you never had these scars before? He asked. I nodded. Not until a few weeks ago. He exhaled. Show me your hands. I hesitated before extending them. The dried blood was gone, but I could still feel it. He studied my fingers, my nails, the skin around them. Then he asked a question that sent a shiver down my spine. Have you checked beneath the scars? I stared at him. What do you mean? Ian leaned forward. Some wounds don't just heal over. They seal something inside. My breath caught in my throat. Seal something inside. A surge of nausea rolled through me. I had been so focused on how the scars appeared, I never questioned what they might be hiding. Ian reached into a drawer and pulled out a scalpel. Let me check. My whole body tensed. I don't think. You came here for answers, didn't you? His voice was calm but firm. If something is inside you, we need to know. I swallowed hard. Then, slowly, I rolled up my sleeve and extended my arm. Ian worked with precision. He pressed the blade lightly against one of the older scars near my wrist, just enough to part the skin. And then, something shifted beneath the wound. I felt it, a deep, twisting movement, like something waking up. I gasped, jerking my arm back. What the hell was that? Ian's face had gone pale. You need to see this. He grabbed a magnifying lens and leaned in, inspecting the open scar. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled a small metal tool from his desk and carefully reached into the wound. My vision blurred with panic. Then, a tiny, black filament emerged from beneath my skin. Thin, thread-like, moving, like a nerve that had come to life. Or a parasite. I gagged. Ian's face was unreadable. I've seen this before, he muttered. My pulse pounded. What is it? He didn't answer right away. He placed the scalpel down, folded his hands, and looked me straight in the eyes. What I'm about to tell you will sound insane, he said, but you need to listen carefully. I nodded, my skin crawling with dread. He exhaled. There's something inside you, something that's been using your body while you sleep. It's not just making the scars. It's leaving something behind. I shook my head. No, that doesn't make sense. But even as I said it, I could feel it, a deep, pulling sensation beneath my skin. Ian continued, These filaments, they aren't natural. I've seen them in other patients. People who wake up with wounds they can't explain. He swallowed, and they all say the same thing, that it feels like something else is living beneath their skin. My breath came in shallow gasps. I pressed my hands against my arms, against the scars, and for the first time, I felt them, not just on the surface, deeper, like roots buried inside me, growing, spreading. I choked back a sob. What do I do? Ian's jaw tightened. We need to get them out. All of them, before it's too late. I nodded frantically. Yes, whatever it takes. He reached for his surgical kit. It's going to hurt, he warned. I don't care. I just wanted whatever was inside me. Out. He picked up the scalpel, and as he made the first cut, I screamed. I don't remember much after that. Just pain, a burning, searing pain that rattled through every nerve in my body. I remember Ian's voice, low and steady, telling me to hold still. And then, the sound, a wet, slithering sound as something peeled away from my flesh. Then silence. When I woke up, I was in Ian's office, bandages wrapped tightly around my arms. He sat across from me, watching me carefully. It's done, he said. I swallowed, my throat dry. Are they gone? Ian didn't answer right away. Then he exhaled. They're out, but that doesn't mean they're gone. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I tried to sit up, but my body felt weak. My head swam. Ian placed a small metal dish on the table in front of me. I wished I hadn't looked. Inside were thin, black tendrils, twisting, moving. Even though they were no longer inside me, they were still alive. My breath hitched. What happens now? Ian stared at the dish, his expression dark. We have to find out where they came from. His voice was quiet. Because if they were inside you, he turned to me, eyes grave. Then you're not the only one.